Welcome to another Capital Gains Tax Solutions Mastermind, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax referral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax referral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way for you to exit highly appreciated assets, whether it be cryptocurrency, businesses, real estate. Eliminate the need for the 1031 exchange so you can create and preserve more wealth. My name is Brett Swartz, and I'm founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. And each and every week, we are trying to bring the best kept secrets for the Deferred Sales Trust so you can have clarity on how to make this an absolute home run for you on your exit planning purposes. And let's face it, capital gains tax is huge. And when you're looking at, selling highly appreciated assets, that can be as much as 25 to 50% of your gain. And you want to make sure that you have a good plan when you exit. Otherwise, you're going to pay the tax. With the Deferred Sales Trust, we can defer up to 100% of your capital gains tax. Just kind of depends on your basis, depends on your debt, depends on what you're selling. And so in today's kind of talking points that we're looking at today is how to make the DST an investment and not an expense. And the DST being the Deferred Sales Trust. There's really three common objections to the Deferred Sales Trust. And this is probably one of the three for sure that come up. It's like, hey, it seems like it's too expensive. It seems like maybe, is it worth it? What's the return on investment? And so the first thing to always clarify is your capital gains tax liability. I think sometimes working with clients, they can tend to forget what that liability is, or they're not clear on that. And if you're not clear on your current circumstance and the current pain point for that tax, it's going to be difficult to see the return on investment. It's going to be difficult to see the value of the solution. It's kind of like, I had ACL surgery on my knee, and I think it cost around $50,000 or $60,000, right? But it was priceless for me because I played basketball in college. I'd signed a scholarship. It's like, I am willing to go under the knife, do all these things, go through the rehab, because if my ACL can be reconstructed, I can play basketball again, right? The pain was not being able to play basketball was going to be, monumental. And so the Deferred Sales Trust, likewise, how painful is the tax going to be for you? So you want to get crystal clarity on the tax liability before you step into the next step, which then becomes, do I have an eligible transaction? Do I have an eligible transaction? What does that mean? Well, that means something has capital gains tax. Now, a practical eligible transaction means it's large enough to warrant setting up this type of structure. We like to see $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain per transaction. So if you have that going for the sale, then it becomes a practical eligible transaction. It can be cryptocurrency, business sales. It could be LLC, S corps. It could be stock, public or private stock. It could be primary home sales. It could be anything that it's highly appreciated. In fact, you can even do short term. We're working with some owners that own land, and what they're doing is they tie up the land, they improve the land, but they don't close on it until they've entitled it. And then they close on it. And this is typically subject to ordinary income tax, which is even higher tax. And so the Deferred Sales Trust can work for these shorter term deals as well to defer that income tax. So now, biggest question after this becomes, well, how to make the DST an investment, not an expense? Like, what are the fees? Fees are typically 1.5% on the first million and 1.25% on anything above that. That is the one-time fee to the tax attorney and provides lifetime audit defense. And that's part of the team for the Deferred Sales Trust. The second part of the team is the trustee. That's us, Capital Gains Tax Solutions. And then what we're doing is we're doing the ongoing management of the trust. But really, what I found our clients love most about us is that we focus like a laser on opening up opportunities to invest, whether it be into real estate, business ventures, or connecting with some of the top financial planners in the country to get a balanced, well-diversified plan that suits your needs and your risk tolerances. And it really becomes kind of a part of your dream team to help you with the next chapter of this wealth while staying within the guardrails of the Deferred Sales Trust. And so let's talk about the three top ways to make the DST an investment, not an expense. Number one would be to defer that capital gains tax and the income tax. Let's do a deal that we recently did in Colorado, and this sale was a $7 million business. And for this particular client, he didn't need or want any of the income right away. In fact, he was relocating from Colorado to Florida, and he was going to establish residency in Florida, which has a lower income tax than Colorado. And for him, the DST will start paying him once he's a resident in Florida, which helps to create opportunity for compounding interest for income tax deferral while he waits for the payments. And then as he receives payments, he'll pay tax. And so the first thing to understand is we're deferring the capital gains tax on this sale. I think it was right around 30 to 35%. Of the gain that he had would have been taxed, and his basis was very low. So we're talking about, on 7 million or so, you're looking at just some quick math, 7 million at 35%. It's about $2 to $2.5 million of tax. And so understanding that number is important. And the second part is that income tax deferral, right? Because he doesn't have to take income right away from the trust. He can delay the income for a few years, then start taking income. He's able to lower his overall income tax, coupled with the fact that he actually relocated to a place like Florida, where it has a lower or really no income tax for Florida versus Colorado. He's also getting some savings there, which is powerful. So that's the first one. Okay. What's the second way? Well, the second way to make the DST an investment and not an expense has to do with the ability to joint venture partner with the trust. Most of our promissory notes that are set up with the trust are somewhere between 6 and 9% net of fees. So in the scenario with the $7 million sale, an extra $2 million's in there, and it's typically making somewhere between, again, 6 to 9% net of fees, and then it's paying out to the note holder. And so that's great, right? But the second part, you can partner with the trust. And by partnering with the trust, you can get additional upside above and beyond just the interest rate on the note. And honestly, this is the single best reason I think our clients love the deferred sales trust, because it allows you to be passive, allows you to be active, and allows you to be, retired, or allows you to be an entrepreneur, allows you to be diversified with your time, your energy, diversified with, different partnerships that you might want to separate from, different locations that you want to get some freedom from. But also it doesn't limit you to just the 7 million, let's say 8% return. You have the opportunity to grow outside of the trust by partnering with it, so you're not capped. And I think that's really important, because I think a lot of people, when they first hear about the DST, they're thinking, oh, I'm just doing an installment sale and I'm just capped to get my money back and then interest rate. And that's maybe the number one myth with the DST. And that means what you do is you set up another LLC, and it needs to have a business investment, like a real estate or a business kind of thing to go into, but the trust can become that silent joint venture partner, and you might make 100% on that deal. And if we structure it properly, you're going to get the majority of that upside, 80% to 98%, depending on if you purchased an option and depending on some of the specifics on the deal. And so that's the cool thing about the DST. And once you understand that, you go, oh, okay, so I would have paid 30 or 40% up front, but hypothetically, I'm using that same 30 to 40% to doing this joint venture partnership with me, and I could get returns of 20, 30, 40, 50% over time. Yes, right? And then you can do a second promissory note. So that's the second way to make the deferred sales trust an investment and not an expense. The third way I think I like to really highlight today has to do with estate tax. Now, this estate death tax, if you've seen the show Yellowstone, that's the entire premise of Yellowstone. Kevin Costner has this land that he's inherited from his family many, many years ago. The valuation has gone through the roof over, let's say, $100 million or more. And there's people that are all trying to get the land, to do the different things on the land and just purchase the land to build hotels or do other things. But the challenge is it's all inside the taxable estate. And so if he dies, because his wife has already died, he's the last person with that, which means the government will assess about 40% death tax on that value of that land, sub about 5 million if he's single, depending if he gets married in the show, his 10 million as of 2026. So the point is, the DST can be an investment on expense, because if he were to sell that land, we can eliminate the estate tax by moving it outside of his taxable estate. Now, someone might say, well, what about life insurance? What about gifting? What about charity? Well, none of those are required with the DST plus, right? And those life insurance policies can be very expensive. The gifting can take a lot of time. And charity is great, but a lot of our clients don't want to give 100% to charity. They want to maybe do a little bit mix and match. And so the DST plus is where we can eliminate that estate tax, which can open up huge opportunities for impact for the wealth. In fact, there's an estimated $84 trillion that's set to transfer in the next 20 years or so. It's known as the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. And the deferred sales trust, we believe, is on the forefront for the flexibility, the legal track record, and the certainty of diversification and being free with the money that you can get, all with staying within the tax guidelines, and providing an amazing outcome with elimination of the estate tax, deferral of the capital gains tax. And so it's that mix and match that can make the DST an investment, not an expense. And so sometimes we get caught up in the forest from the trees, right? And or the trees from the forest. And you got to look at both scenarios: your immediate income tax deferral, capital gains tax deferral, and then the larger forest for your overall estate, what this is going to mean. And you want to look at the deferred sales trust at each angle to figure out how to make it an investment and not an expense. And by the way, if you want to take action right now, you can go to check out our book. Go to Amazon. We have Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan on Amazon. You can buy the digital version, or you can buy the hard copy. Hit #1 bestseller. We have people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book, and I think you're going to love it. And it's really my story on how we've come to love, know, like, and trust the DST, and what it can do for our clients. That being said, I am joined by some amazing people that are listening in. It looks like here we do have Mr. Jake Carpenter and Rebecca, some of our strategic alliances. I'll call on Jake. Jake, how are we doing today? Happy Friday to you, sir.
Happy Friday. And if
looks like you might be on mute, so I might have to come back to you there. Unless it's mine. Oh, you might be in my headphones is probably what's going on. So let me go ahead and connect back to that. Rebecca, you want to say hi there? Just in case I can make sure that's not.
Nice to see you.
Oh, excellent. Okay, great. All right, Jake, back to you. Sorry, sir. So happy Friday after the Thanksgiving. Did you get your Cyber Monday on? And did you get your your turkey leftovers with cranberry on? Or what's going on over there, Jake?
My wife is an amazing cook, so we hit the turkey pretty hard. And it's in my area of the country. It's officially winter today. We had golf ball sized snowflakes coming down. So I hope the rest of you are maybe in better weather, unless you like a lot of snow. Roads were terrible, but I'm grateful to be here. Excited to be here. Talk about the Deferred Sales Trust again. Had a great Thanksgiving. Very blessed.
Excellent. So what's the #1 way that you help people overcome the deferred sales trust, as it pertains to making it an investment and not an expense? Can you break down if someone says, well, Jake, it just feels like it's pretty expensive, Jake. Like, how do we make this an investment and not an expense?
I think the first thing that us, meaning our team here, Brett Swartz, myself, Jake Miller, Rebecca Monson, what you're doing when you engage the Deferred Sales Trust is you're choosing your team, right? That's what Brett and I always say. And when you choose this team, our job is to take this strategy and to customize it so it is just that. It's an asset. It's not a liability. And so the way I break that down is, okay, yes, there's some expenses to setting up and running the trust, but it is really hard for us to even try to make it so expensive to outrun the 30 to 50% capital gains haircut you're going to take right out of the gates, and then potentially another 40% of estate tax just on the federal side. On top of that, we're not even talking about the state estate tax. So one of the ways that our team does that is not only deferring the capital gains, not only addressing the state and federal estate tax, But we come together as a team. We work with your professionals, your CPAs, your attorneys, your financial planners, your real estate brokers, and we build a strategy based on your risk tolerance to put you in assets and to put you in a position to invest in assets, whether directly or passively, to outrun and create more income and growth than you normally would be able to in just a traditional stock bond mutual fund portfolio or just a passive real estate investment that you'd find on the street somewhere.
Yeah, very well said. And this is Jake Carpenter. He's with Carpenter Capital LLC up in the state of Washington, and he's one of our top strategic alliances. What I love about Jake is he has a great understanding and expertise of the deferred sales trust, as well as he has a great understanding for real estate and securities, traditional securities, which is great. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Jake. I think building a team is so important, right? This strategy is not a simple strategy that anyone can do. It does take experts that are executing the business plan. This acts more like a C corp than it does like a living trust, which you set up one time and kind of just fund it and forget it. It is an ongoing living, breathing entity that is doing business with you to pay you back the money plus a return, and takes professionals to execute it. And that's the key, right? You want to make sure you are always remembering what the trust has for its equity. Like, does it have, like I was reviewing it with one of my clients today, and we were going back and I say, hey, do you remember what the trust, what you're deferred? Like it's been a couple of years, right? And he's like, I haven't looked at it in a while. I'm like, well, maybe let's review it. Let's talk about it. And I said, what did you buy your house for? And we looked up on Zillow or Redfin, and it was like $260,000 in 1997. And he was in California. So he was, I said, okay. And I said, did you put any money in? He's like, maybe about $100,000. I'm like, okay. So about $100,000. Got it. So you're about, let's call it 360,000 as your basis. And then I said to him, well, what'd you sell it for? About 1.45 million. And then we subtracted the closing costs. He said he paid about 3% closing cost. So I go, okay, so you have about a 1.4 million. And I said, it was your primary, right? He goes, no, it wasn't my primary. I'm like, oh, it was a rental. And he goes, yeah. And I go, and you depreciate it? He goes, yeah. And so we did a rough depreciation schedule. So we dwindled his basis down to about like 125,000, something like that. And so I said, well, let's remember this: 1.4 minus 125,000 as a $1.28 million gain. Let's take 40%. You have the state of about 13.3. You have Obamacare of about 3.8. You have depreciation recapture, and you have federal of about 20. So I go, that's like a $512,000 tax liability. And I go, wow, that's a big amount. And he had a little bit of debt he paid off, but we basically estimated that in the trust, 52% of the trust funds were owed to the government. And so I said to him, what's interesting is we're looking at these fees. A lot of times, sometimes we forget that this isn't all your money. In fact, 52% of it's the government's money, and the government is charging you zero interest, and the government is paying a part of my fee, and then also paying part of your interest, payments back to you. And 48% of it is yours. I go, this might be one of the best deals I've seen. 52% of the proceeds would have been gone. I go, this is a phenomenal thing. And he goes, I go, does that help you at all? Like with some of these fees and the expenses? And he goes, yeah, it actually does. It actually does. I'm like, yeah, don't forget that. And so if you're listening to this, that should be like at the top of every single, I think, part of the deferred sales trust is that pain point, that percentage of the funds that are inside of there, that tax liability that you would incur should you exit the deferred sales trust. Because if you forget that and you think it's just like a traditional IRA or 401k or an investment account that I have with a financial advisor or an investment that I have into real estate, then all of a sudden you go, oh, like, why am I paying more than I would have been paying if I were doing this myself, right? Rebecca, any thoughts on that? As you're in real estate, you're a top realtor up in the Truckee, Tahoe area, and clients are looking at this. What's kind of your feedback on what I just said there?
I do get that pushback on the fees, but I appreciate that you broke it down. And 52%, that's amazing, Brett. That's an amazing deal. I haven't come across one of those yet, but because he obviously rode the wave of appreciation for California. I mean, that's one of the positive sides for California, right? Real estate values have gone up so much, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much taxes, especially in California, that people are responsible for, whether it's an investment property or, I mean, even, just a second home that they didn't rent out. Those are the crazy things, because a second home you don't depreciate. So yeah.
It reminds me of goal setting, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you set goals, we're setting our goals by the end of the year, do some goal planning, right? And if you aren't looking at those goals, or you're not like, looking at your vision for your life or for whatever your financial plan, whatever, it's easy to forget. We all forget, why we started to do the things that we did in the beginning, and it loses that momentum. I've heard this quote by Craig Groeschel. He has one of the number one leadership podcasts in America, and he says, "Momentum is greater than the sum total of all your leadership, resources, and strategy combined." And I thought about that for a second. I'm like, wow, like greater than the sum total of all three of those things. That's pretty remarkable to think about. And I think you can apply it to everything we're talking about today, right? Because you have this huge sale, you have all this momentum that's built up. And in this scenario for this client, he had bought in 1997. It's in the Silicon Valley, and boom, he's selling in 2020, right? So tremendous, huge momentum, and then a huge exit, right? And a huge momentum for the DST, like boom, we got that, we got it in place. And then what happens to momentum? Or even like a saying that vision leaks, right? Vision leaks. Like if you're not constantly reminding yourself of the vision and the things that you're doing and why you're doing them, it starts to deflate, whether that be for your family, whether that be your business, whether that be for everything that we're doing in life, it starts to deflate. And so I think that's what happens with folks, right? It starts to deflate, and we forget that the momentum of the upside and of the exit, now it starts to, you start to forget, and you start to, do I even have any tax? Yeah, you still have tax. As you get payments back, you're going to pay the tax. Okay, let's regroup on that. And then it starts to click again. Any thoughts on that? Actually, I'm going to bring in someone new today. I see Todd today. Todd, any thoughts on anything that Jake, Rebecca, or I have been talking about?
There we go. I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks for having me. Yeah, because I'm coming from the history of an accountant just telling me to always pay my taxes and move on and do whatever you want with what's left over. So thanks for me finding Jake Carpenter and finding you. We're excited to do our first one with you guys with this next sell. So yeah, everything you guys are talking about, again, a zero free loan from the IRS, and let's go make some money together on it. That's great. I don't mind paying fees on that, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. We had another client working with a $8 million mobile home park sale in California. And the financial advisor doesn't quite know us yet. And the commercial real estate agent that I'm working with is representing her. And so they brought the referral to us, and we're kind of down the road, and they're like, "Oh, I checked my financial advisor and they said I should just pay the tax." I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, are they recommending IRAs? And then the reason was the financial advisor said, "Well, you got to pay the tax at some point anyways. You might as well pay the tax." And we're like, have you guys heard of the law of compounding interest? Like, I just feel like it seems like it's always easier to pay someone else's tax. Like it's always easy for me to tell Todd to pay his tax, like if I'm the CPA or the financial advisor. Now, I'm hoping that the financial advisor gives us a shot and like really looks at it and considers it and see if we can bring them in to help with the thing. Right? I'm hoping, have an open mind. But I just don't get that. Like, I don't get it unless you need to spend it all on the personal money, right? Because the trust, you can pass it on to children and they can continue to kick the can, if you will, and just live off the interest payments. Now they pay tax on that. But Todd, any thoughts on that? Like, I mean, your CPA or that old mindset, like what else is there? Am I missing any other argument there?
No, you guys allowed him and our attorney on that one phone call. He only had to be on one phone call to say, "Okay, Todd, go for it. Let's do this." And he wants, the amazing thing is I'm blessed. He invests in a lot of our deals. So he wants to see how this goes to see if he can bring himself and some other clients in with you. So thank you. Just thanks for the opportunity. I'm thrilled.
Well, Todd, I appreciate you sharing that. And that's what we found, right? Once, because you can't blame the CPA, right? Because a lot of these guys, they get approached with stuff that's never worked or doesn't work or so new. And they're like, gosh, everyone's trying to get me to bless these things that are just off the wall, overseas or offshore or something weird. And then when they actually go, oh, it's just an installment sale. Oh, okay. And you have that flexibility for the payment and you can defer it for longer than I thought. Then all of a sudden they tend to bring us the referrals. They start to say, oh, I've got 10 other clients for you guys. Where have you been the last 15 years?
All right.
So Jake Carpenter, any thoughts on that feedback for Todd here? Jake, and he might be talking right now, but Rebecca, any thoughts on that, or does that help at all for someone who's live like Todd here?
Oh, I love it, and I love what Todd said about the $0 free loan from the IRS. I mean, and getting your team, not the capital gains tax solution team, but the person's team on the phone with you guys, just makes a world of difference. I think once people understand what it is, because there is that fear, there's definitely a million things. I mean, I can't, CPAs, financial advisors, they get bombarded just like realtors. We get bombarded with a million other things, invest in this, I'll give you leads for this, that kind of thing. So I can only imagine. So to have a little bit of skepticism is okay. But take the time, sit on an hour phone call, learn about it. It absolutely makes sense. I know personally, when I found out about this from a friend, I was absolutely just in awe of what it can do, the opportunities that are out there. I knew immediately that it was an incredible solution for people.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, that's exactly right. If you want to take action, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. It's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also check out the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan, and it breaks down the entire journey of basically zero to hopefully we can become your hero with the Deferred Sales Trust, and our secrets, really. And we try to just give it away so that you understand it, you get comfortable with it as much as you can. It is a big sale, a big exit. If you have a team, and if you have a strategy that helps you get from A to B, A where you're at, B where you want to be, and the Deferred Sales Trust can help you do that, we believe it can. But you got to have an eligible transaction, $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain, but it can be crypto, business, real estate. It can be partnership separating. We've done car washes. We've done mobile homes. We've done multifamily. We've done luxury primary homes. We've done public-private stock. We've done, those are just a few. Oh, we've done land, short-term land deals, right? Large deals. We did 46 million in Texas last year. So lots of opportunities that we can share deal stories to get you comfortable and proficient. And that's really the key. Looks like we do have a couple other strategic lines to join us. We have Jake Miller and Micah today. Jake, how are we doing today?
Doing very well, Brett. I was just adding to your list of amazing things that we've done. And there's a racehorse, there's Bitcoin, there's anything that is a highly appreciated asset that qualifies you to use the deferred sales trust can be an opportunity for you to save hundreds of thousands of dollars on taxes. And that's something that we help people out with every day. And it's just a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. And Mike, I'll pass it to you too. What are you hearing that you're liking today, and any feedback or thoughts for the viewers today?
Yeah, I really like being able to go into one sector, maybe it's real estate or where we've said, and you can pivot. And you don't have to stay in that same sector. You don't have to stay in just a 1031 exchange and keep it in real estate. You can start letting it work for you. You can start that drip of income stream, right? It's an amazing tool. And the neat thing about it is that you get to use a team that has been there and done that, because you're always scared of something the first time. But when you've been in it and you've seen it and you've read the book on it, it's kind of neat because it's doable.
Absolutely. And Jake and Micah can be found at strategictaxsolutions.com. They are partners in life, being married, and they run Strategic Tax Solutions and one of our top financial advisors to work with. And what I love about them is they also are very entrepreneurial and out of the box. Like Jake is one of the most cerebral strategic thinkers, which is great. You can go to strategictaxsolutions.com to learn more about that. I'm going to pass it back to Todd now, because this is kind of a unique opportunity, right? Todd, he hasn't closed on it yet. And Todd, what What questions or thoughts or concerns or hesitations, anything at all that you have that you could just kind of toss up and let's see if we can mastermind it?
We love that. Okay, so here we go. I'm still learning this all. We don't own, me and my wife and I, we will not own the deferred trust, correct? It'll have its own federal ID number. What we will have is the promissory note that will hit on our personal financial, right, Jake?
Absolutely. It's exactly right.
Okay.
So here's the key to this, right? If you owned it, you just sold it to yourself. You wouldn't need a third party unrelated trustee. And anyone could sell anything to themselves and just defer the tax, but that doesn't make any sense, right? And in a traditional installment sale, you could also carry paper for the buyer, right? And someone might say, well, why not just do a traditional installment sale? Well, in that scenario, the funds are not diversified, they're not liquid, they're not really much available except for the payment that's coming to you, and you might have to foreclose back on that asset anyways. And so the essence of the deferred sales trust has a solid foundation. If you go to your CPA, they know IRC 453, a seller carryback. It's called selling on terms on contract, a couple of different ways to think about that. But essentially think about that. But the difference now, and by the way, if you sell your asset on regular terms, you don't own that asset anymore, right? That makes sense. Yeah, you sold it and you let them borrow the money and they're going to pay you back slowly over time. Now, if they don't pay, you can foreclose. The collateral is the asset, and then you can take back the asset. In this scenario, the collateral can be secured against the biggest companies in the world. It can be secured against, multifamily assets, multifamily funds. It can be in, Home Depot, Google, Apple, Facebook, whatever you feel great about, like Home Depot. I mean, I'm not the financial advisor. You work with Jake Carpenter to do that on this one, but it can also go into real estate deals of your own. You could also partner with the trust and kind of like a self-directed IRA in that sense, with properly structured, you can invest into other assets where you're running the deal. It's really flexible. And that's the neat part. You're not tied to the old asset anymore, but you don't own the trust. But the trust has the obligation to pay you back what was put into it plus a rate of return. And that's how you have the security, because you can still foreclose on the trust and have all of the capital sent to you. You have all the rights and protections of a lender. But guess what, Todd? Most people haven't been a lender before. They've only ever been an owner. And so it's different. It's like riding a bike for the first time, right? They've had loans for houses, that a bank has loaned money on, right? And then they were the owner still, but a lot of people have never loaned money before. And so it is a little bit different. It's that shift. Then you couple that with the emotional, oh my gosh, this momentum of me selling everything. It's like fourth quarter, 10 seconds ago. It's part of why we love it, what we do. But does that answer the question? And hopefully maybe a little bit more too.
No, yeah, that does, because that's where I'm trying to wrap my head around to make sure I understand that. Then can we brainstorm about this one? Once we sell those 6 mobile home parks, we just decided we do want to sell the last apartment complex that we have. But for my side of that percentage of my side of the deal, it will probably only be about 450,000. Would you allow that to come into that same deferred?
I'll tee up Jake Carpenter on this one. Jake, how would we handle that? If he wants to do it in pieces, what would we do there?
Yeah, so really, initially to qualify, again, we need $1 million of net proceeds, $1 million subject to capital gains. So if that's 2 $500,000 sales within 1 year, if it's $1 million net sale proceeds and gain, and then you bring in another 200 later on, another 400 later on, all it is just an additional promissory note. So we just wrap it up in the same trust with another promissory note, and maybe slightly different terms, but yes, you can do that.
And then when we're budgeting to do that exit into the deferred sales trust, are we paying the attorneys again, or do we pay them up front for when we sold the mobile home parks, the first trust? I don't have to pay the attorneys. I just pay your fees going in. Can you help me understand that? Paint that picture for me?
Yeah, I can answer that. It all depends, right? And so it depends on if it's the same sale versus a different sale, right? So if it's wrapped, if you're like, hey, I'm carrying back some paper for the buyer and I'm also putting the majority into the trust, then typically they would wrap it up into just a one. They charge it up front on the gross sales price, and then as you exit, that amount. Now for Jake Carpenter and I, as Jake, bringing the deal here on for you here, he's managing the capital. We would charge only on the net proceeds at the time of sale, and then if the new tranche comes in on those net proceeds, right? So there's never any double fees in that scenario. Now, if it's a separate, and by the way, it might even be one promissory note, depending on the timing of the 400 when that's coming in. What we found over the years is these deals are not cookie cutter, so everyone's a little bit different. So Jake's right; it might be a second promissory note. It might even just be one promissory note, but that has the schedule of the 400 coming in later. But what we would do ultimately is have what's called like an adjustment provision to adjust based upon what actually shows up into the trust on the promissory note. And then the last point I'll leave here is once you get over that $1 million net proceeds and $1 million gain, it's sort of like buying multifamily in scale or mobile home parks. Like, multifamily, good numbers to have at least 100 units, right? There might be, maybe it's a good number to have 75 to 150 spaces for mobile home park, right? Well, same thing with the deferred sales trust. Once you get over that $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain, then these smaller amounts that might come from different assets are great to add to it because it's already scaled. It's almost like, Todd, you bought another 50 spaces next door to you and you only own 25. But now you add it 50 and you get that scale with that management. Is that making some sense, Todd?
That does. And it keeps it simple for our accountant and my wife and I, that if we know we'll just have one deferred sales trust but maybe multiple promissory notes as we bring.
Let me talk about this point real fast. I have a client. He goes, Brett, I have 52 tax returns. He goes, it's crazy. He goes, I just got done with this. It's just, I'm like, did you know? He's done a DST with us. We sold a $3.8 million property in Sacramento, and he used the DST for the first time. And his first name is Andy. I'm like, Andy, do you know how much we can simplify your life? He's like, what do you mean? Look, you could sell all of those assets and it can go into one, probably two trusts, because we're gonna do some estate planning, but two trusts. Okay. You can likely dissolve all of those LLCs. Okay. And then you have no more tax returns. Okay. And what you receive is just a 1099, and any additional principal that you receive, you report that. Simple. He was like, wow. So sometimes the DST not only is simplifying, or deferring your tax and giving you financial benefit, it's simplifying the paperwork. I mean, in paperwork, it can be draining, right? To go through that every year. At a certain point, this gentleman's, he's a very high net worth individual. At a certain point, the peace of mind and I have to deal with paperwork can mean a whole lot. And so I just wanted to throw that out. Todd, what other questions or thoughts do you have that maybe we can tee up and ask Jake Miller and Micah as well to see if we can answer them?
I think I'm okay now because I've been listening to all your other YouTube videos. Thanks for putting this out there. I just want to keep joining to kind of learn more and more so it's smoother, so I don't have to keep asking these questions to you and Jay Carpenter. But yeah, we're feeling real comfortable. We just got to get the mobile home park sold and let's start the first one. So
fantastic.
I don't think I have another question on that. So, but thank you for asking.
No, keep coming back, Todd. I appreciate the diligence on taking action to get educated and as much as you can before the exit, right? So there's no surprises. This is why we want to put the content out so that you can watch it and pause it, replay it, play it again, right? And check out the book. Jake Miller, what thoughts do you have? We've been talking a lot here. What say you after this Thanksgiving? Last week being Thanksgiving, what say you?
Yeah, so mostly it's a wonderful time of year when people are finalizing their books, finalizing their business negotiations. They're doing end of year money movements for those tax breaks. And oftentimes they're looking at possibly closing on that biggest sale of their life, right? And that's when the deferred sales trust might help them remove obstacles that would normally be in their way. One of those is paying that tax bill. You have a lot of clients selling that piece of real estate, selling the mobile home park, selling that business, whatever, that are thinking of, hey, do I need to do installments? How do I mitigate the ramification of all this money coming to me at once? And the answer is you can have your cake and eat it too. Because with a deferred sales trust, you can receive all of it all at once. You don't have to break it up into installments. You don't have to do all this other tricky financial tax strategy stuff, because this is a keystone strategy that, if done right, all the other strategies fall in line beside the deferred sales trust to help optimize a client's tax flow or diminish, I guess the optimization of tax flow is not having any, right? So that's what our goal is.
Very well said, Jake. Mike, you want to add anything to that, or highlight anything that Jake said there?
I had a thought and then I had a message come up, so then it just kind of made my thought go out the window. But I will say that the deferred sales trust is a neat vehicle that is just so dynamic in so many ways. But I'm sure it'll come back to me. I unmuted a minute ago. It'll come back.
And when it does, we'll be here to answer it. Cool. Let's see if anyone else on here today. Felipe, he might be with Jake's team, which is cool. Otherwise, it's just us hanging out. I'll pass it back to Rebecca. Rebecca, any questions or thoughts, or Jake Carpenter here?
No, I don't. I'm sure I do, but not one off the top of my head right now. Yeah, I had one the other day. I should have written it down. Oh well, sorry.
Write them down and come back. Jake Carpenter, any thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I do want to just say that Todd here on the call is in some ways kind of a model seller, because he did things the correct way, which is do your due diligence, get your professionals involved. You want to compel them to go through the due diligence, get your CPA, your attorney, your financial planner, your real estate broker, make them go through the due diligence, because it's either going to help you determine that it's the right strategy or it is not the right strategy. But, our team, Brett Swartz, Jake Meller, Micah, Rebecca, we're here just to educate and take you through the due diligence process. Guys like Todd, sellers that are wealthy like him, that are smart like him, they'll be able to decide once they go through the due diligence if it really is for them and it makes sense and it works for their situation. And too many times we have situations where the seller's professionals won't even engage in the due diligence process. And it makes no sense. They're making a very expensive decision for the seller. And Brett and I and Jake and I, and we sometimes scratch our heads and go, why would they allow their professionals to not go through the due diligence process when they've got a 3, 5, 10, Brett, what was that one that we just came off the hook? That was a $60 million sale. What was the capital gains tax on that?
He had no basis, and it was a business, and he wasn't even aware of what the estate tax was going to be, and his professionals were not excited about the DST, and yet he wasn't even prepared to have an estate tax, situation. So yeah, and we wish him very well. And I'm like, hey man, if you have a better strategy for what you're doing, please, man, we're Capital Gains Tax Solutions plural. Like, we'll bring your strategy in too. And yet, I think for him, he had a long-term relationship with his advisors, and his advisors had different ideas and different plans. And I think they just kept saying they thought it was risky. And it's what most of them will say. Oh, we just think it's risky. And they go, well, have you signed the NDAs and gone through the due diligence and seen the track record of thousands of closes? No, we haven't done that, but we just think it's risky. And I go, okay, well, hey, I wish you all the best. I hope whatever you're doing has all of that track record and all of that legal stuff. And he chose his team. And so sometimes we lose them, and that's okay. He was very nice and he was very straightforward about it. And so I wish him all the best, but you can only help so many people, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I think Micah had a question here or a thought. So Micah, I want to tee you up real fast.
Yeah, no. So when Jake was kind of talking about the due diligence part, that's what spurred kind of my thought coming back to what I was trying to write down before. But basically, It's making sure that you are getting in front of the sell, right? And being proactive. I mean, I think it's great that Jake Carpenter has brought Todd on so that you can get in front of it, right? And one of those things, I'm not sure if you talked about it before I joined, but making sure that you have those parameters in your selling agreement so that it gives you that opportunity, right? I mean, it's kind of neat because you don't have to go through with the DST if you don't want to. That's totally up to you. But I mean, obviously, we want you to do it because of of that time value of money that Brett brought up earlier, right? That's just, it's so cool. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
That's really well
I mean
said.
that was
Yeah.
just kind of what I was thinking about, was making sure that the timing of when you actually meet with the team and getting that in place, because there are certain times when it comes off the table, when you've gone too far down that rabbit hole.
You nailed it. In fact, there was a deal this week. It's over a $20 million business sale in California. And there's two partners, and one had more of the time and the energy with the DST, and the other one had less time. And they closed on their transaction without having the DST in place. And the one partner said, "Oh, I didn't know I needed to have it in place before the closing." And I'm like, "Oh," and this is like 50 years in the making. Like, if you're hearing anything today, is you can set up the deferred sales trust at no cost, no obligation with our team, and we have the option in place. Should you want to use it, and if the deal doesn't work out or you don't want to use it, you owe zero, nothing. You're not obligated. And so we will meet with your CPAs, with your attorneys, with the M&A advisors, commercial real estate agents, whoever is helping you with your exit, and teach them and educate them. They need to sign NDAs, but if you say no, you say no, but at least you have that option, right? And not running out of time. And his scenario, he's probably paying 40 to 45% of the gain. And it's like unfathomable to think about. And we had to just kind of it was kind of awkward because he's like, "Oh, we already closed." I'm like, "Oh, now they have a second asset they might use it for, but this first one is gone forever." Like, it's literally the legacy of, it was actually 50 plus years in the family. It passed on this business, and zero basis, and just going to get crushed with tax because of, maybe I got to do a better job. I got to be like, "Hey, you must, get the option in place right now." And so what that looks like is simply getting on a call with us for 30 to 60 minutes, us qualifying to see if your deal is qualifying transaction, signing the conditional engagement agreements, no obligation. And then we can form the trust, and we can start to weave it into the contract as an option for you as the seller. And then should you want to exercise the ability to use it, you do that. And then we go towards closing. But if any time between that moment and closing, you don't want to use it, you owe nothing. The second part is, if you're in a 1031 exchange, we can save that failed 1031. We call it the best 1031 plan. You can go to experttaxsecrets.com for that, where we're going to form the team to help you work with your agents, or we are also brokers ourselves. We can help you sell. And when the funds get to the qualified intermediary that we have the relationship with, we give you that backup plan should that 1031 fail. You don't want to get caught in 1031 jail with accommodators who don't know the DST or will not cooperate with the DST. Make sure you're working with us for any 1031 exchanges. Jake Miller, you want to add anything to that before we wrap it up?
Just that sometimes to accomplish something bigger and greater than you've ever done before, you need to bring new team members to the table, people who have done this several times before, so that when you do it for the first time, you do it well. And that's what we are. We are the dream team when it comes to the deferred sales trust. And we're here to help keep you within the guardrails. This strategy is unique in the sense that very few tax strategies have never been disallowed by the IRS. This is one of the very few that exist. 7 years old, meaning that it's still batting at 1,000 after 27 years, thousands of trusts, a variety of different audits. I mean, just by the law of large numbers, whenever you do something so many times, it does get noticed, it does get reviewed, and it does get audited, and we're still batting at 1,000. And so for you to learn how to do it correctly, that's why we're here every Friday, and that's why we're here to help.
And Jake, if people want to find you and Micah, where can they find you?
StrategicTaxSolutions.com, as well as AlphaMarkCapital.com. monthsinvestment.com, where we help people not only with tax strategies, but investments as well.
Amazing. Jake Carpenter, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Call us at 509-396-5292.
Amazing. And I also want to thank Rebecca. Rebecca, if people want to get in touch with you, sell that luxury primary home or investment property in Tahoe or Truckee, Rebecca, where can they find you?
Sure. Reach out to me, phone or text 530-448-9740.
Amazing. And or go to RebeccaMonson.com, MONSON.com. Fantastic. Hey, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you, Todd, for participating and sharing a part of the due diligence story with everyone out there. I want to thank Jake Carpenter, Jake Miller, Micah, Rebecca for being believers in the DST and what we're doing and to help people. And I want to thank you, the listener, for attending and watching the replay or watching it live on YouTube. I want to encourage you to start right now. Take action on everything you're learning. Don't hold back on the due diligence. Learn how to make the DST an investment, not an expense. Clarify your vision for your exit plan. And then call us, email us, connect with us. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Get the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. That'll help you as well. We're here for you. We look forward to talking to